Wait, so they aren't actually firing them? They're just making it impossible to stay?
Exactly. That is the core of the strategy. This isn't a layoff in the traditional sense. It's a calculated attrition plan, and it's all designed to make people quit. Why? To save the government an absolute fortune.
Okay, so let's break this down. It all kicks off with something that sounds, well, totally harmless, right? An official plan called refocusing government spending. On the surface, it just sounds like your typical bureaucratic belt-tightening. It definitely doesn't sound like a weapon to be used against its own workforce.
But then you look at the numbers, and these are not minor trims. We are talking hundreds of millions of dollars in ongoing cuts to huge departments. The CRA, the CBSA, look, you just can't hit these targets by cutting back on travel and paper clips. The only way to get there is by shedding salary mass. It's just simple math.
And this right here, this is the smoking gun. The Parliamentary Budget Officer, who is the independent watchdog, they spell it out in black and white. The government's entire savings plan hinges on, mostly through natural attrition. They are openly, publicly counting on their own employees to quit.
Which, of course, brings us to the real motive. The $100,000 question. Why go through all this trouble to push people out instead of just, laying them off? Well, it's all about the money. A massive financial incentive for them and a massive difference for the employee.
So, this is the crucial point. There are two completely different paths an employee can go down. In scenario A, a formal layoff, the government is on the hook for a full support package. But in scenario B, if that same employee quits out of sheer frustration, they walk away with absolutely nothing, zero.
And this chart just lays it all bare. The financial stake is enormous. Let's take a mid-level manager, 15 years in. A proper layoff cost the government about $127,000 in severance. If that same person quits because of the return to office pressure, the cost is zero. Every single resignation is a six-figure win for the balance sheet.
But honestly, the severance is just the beginning. The real financial weapon here is the pension. For someone in their early 50s, quitting means taking a massive permanent hit to their pension. We're talking up to a 35% cut for life. But if they can just hold on and wait to be offered an early retirement package, that penalty is completely waived. The difference is life-altering. You're basically choosing between financial ruin or holding out for a golden ticket they might never give you. It's a trap.
Now, what's so incredible about all of this is how the entire strategy is legally waterproof. They aren't actually breaking any rules. They're just exploiting the rules that were always there, pretty much hidden in plain sight. And it all comes down to this one core legal principle: management right. Basically, it means the employer has the fundamental authority to decide where the work gets done. And unless your original contract specifically says your home is your office, that location is a downtown government building, whether you like it or not. And here it is. This is the kill switch. Section A.2.2.2 of the Treasury Board's own rulebook. It states that telework is voluntary and can be terminated by either party. That single sentence, that's what gives management the unilateral power to cancel your work-from-home arrangement and makes the whole return-to-office mandate legally bulletproof.
So they've got the money motive and they've got the legal cover. Now, how do they actually push people to the breaking point? Well, they do it by creating what we call calculated friction. It's a series of deliberate moves all designed to make the workplace so unbearable that quitting feels like the only option. It's a four-step playbook we call the compliance ramp. First, you were lured into a voluntary flexible work agreement. Then came the pivot, the mandatory 3-day return. The third step is the squeeze, where they're auditing your attendance with swipe cards and IP logins. And finally, that non-compliance gets tied to your performance review. That freezes your career, blocks any chance of promotion, and eventually forces you to exit. It's basically a slow-motion constructive dismissal.
And here's where the strategy gets really interesting, just from a logical point of view. It's a total contradiction. While they're forcing everyone back into the office, another arm of the government is actively trying to sell off half of the office space. It's an intentional game of musical chairs. It's designed to create chaos, frustration, and just make coming to work a miserable experience.
And you can see the impact of this so clearly in the data. Just look at sick leave. During peak remote work, it was at a low of 5.9 days a year per employee. Now in the return to office era, it's skyrocketed to 9.2 days. Now, this isn't a sign of people being lazy. It's a data point that screams high stress, burnout, and a toxic environment. It is the measurable cost of all that calculated friction.
Okay, this brings us to what is without a doubt the most critical part of this entire breakdown. And the tone has to shift here because this is an urgent warning. How do you know if you are being targeted by one of these soft layoffs?
You need to be watching for these red flags. If you're asked to document your own job in minute detail, that's a classic sign they're preparing for your replacement. Getting cut out of key meetings, your manager suddenly becoming strangely formal, weird IT issues. These are all pages from the playbook. And look, we've even had to redact a couple of the most sensitive indicators on this list just to protect our sources. That should tell you something.
But listen, here is the single most important thing you can do right now, today. Find your original letter of offer. If your designated location of work is a specific office address and you signed a separate telework agreement, you are exposed. They can revoke that agreement. If, however, your letter of offer lists your home address as your location of work, you are legally protected. That document is everything.
So this really leaves us with the final crucial question. The official term for all this is natural attrition. But you have to ask yourself, when an environment is deliberately engineered to be so hostile that your only rational choice is to leave, is it really attrition, or is that just a convenient name for something else entirely?